later on. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself, but at the same time, it's super nice to see everyone on camera. It makes it a lot nicer for the interaction. If you have questions and comments at any time, please share them in the chat, and then our panelists will go ahead and react to them. And slides and recording will be shared. Move on to the next one. So, quick overview of the session that we've planned for you. We'll first get a quick introduction from the panelists that we have for you today. Then Koen will give us a short introduction to the report findings of the upcoming report. And we're looking forward to a discussion with our panelists on these findings and what their perspectives are. And then afterwards, there's tons of time for questions from all of you. And hopefully we should be able to wrap up within the hour. And maybe on the next page, do our panelists just want to provide a short introduction of each of themselves?
Yeah, thanks, Katarina. And let me go first. So my name is Koen. I'm a partner with McKinsey. That's my day job. In my spare time, I'm trying to help out social entrepreneurs, and have been a warm advocate on also this movement. And it's a bit my joy to try to act a bit as your moderator. But luckily I'm not alone, and there's a couple of folks here, see some of them on the screen, that actually are much better in this whole space than I am. So I feel very comforted that they're here. So we have Gabriela Ardanas. I think I should refer to you as a social communicator, but also important, you're a fellow of Ashoka, right? Researcher, professor of research for communication. I think it's really important, and people underestimate the importance and power of communications. And obviously many people might have seen you before because you're a very active speaker on various forums and meetings on topics close to our social development goals. So glad to have you. If I keep moving from left to right, Rodrigo Baggio. Yeah, he just appeared here. He actually looks like his photo on the slide. That is always helpful. And a social entrepreneur, right? So great that we actually have social entrepreneurs, because that is what it's very much about. But also the founder and president of Recode, a global NGO. You're, I think, present in 9 countries and more than 1,000 centers of digital empowerment. Then there's a whole raft of other things you've been doing. Probably too long to mention them all, but let me do point out that you received 60 awards from very esteemed organizations like UNICEF, UNESCO, WEF, and also a fellow of the organizations that have been underlying this report, Ashoka, Scholl Schwab, and also Avina. Then we have Alexander. Glad you are here as well, Alexander. Specialist in social studies of economics. Really coming also from the macroeconomic point of view, but also the importance in the sociology of money, currency, finance, things that of course super important in daily life. I believe you're involved or actually an employee of the Universidad Nacional de San Martín, and very involved in the Center of Social Studies of Economics in Argentina, and various articles also from your name. And then also here we have Juan Manuel. We don't see you on camera yet, but I'm sure it will happen soon. Director of the National Institute of Social Economy in Mexico. Of course, a very important body of change in this whole area. And by background, a degree in industrial engineering, so at least I have something in common with one of you, and a master degree in cooperative business management. So glad you're all here. If we move to the next slide, and I'll do a very quick intro on the report. So the report's now, it's not there yet, it's upcoming. It's called New Allies. And let me first point out it's a collaborative effort of Ashoka, Catalyst 2030, Echoing Green. Skoll Foundation, Schwab Foundation, and Catharina and the team and other colleagues who happen to work at McKinsey in their spare time helped facilitating and getting it together. And in a way, you could think of this report as the follow-on on this earlier report, Embracing Complexity, which I always have close here on my desk. So what does it cover? What does the report cover, and what is it about? It's first of all trying to point out why the work of social entrepreneurs is really needed, and also why structural change is needed, and how it can really make a difference in accelerating the closure of the Sustainable Development Goals. But moving from there, what governments stand to gain in terms of socio-economic impact from helping and facilitating social entrepreneurs, and at the same time try to put in place some of that systems change. And then the report ends with a number of very practical areas where we think government can and should back up, including a number of examples. And on the next slide, just a little framework, if you could move, yeah, thank you. Because we've tried to bucket the key areas we think that would really help based on all the interviews and work and examples in 5 areas. And I'll quickly run you through, and then we really should go and get the views of the practitioners from the ground in our panel. So you see there on the left side 3 input factors, so the things that help for inputting in building the ecosystems, and on the right side more enablers. So if I start at the top, we believe, and we've seen that transparency and data really would help, right? So prevent people are doing the same thing twice, but also providing that platform for people to kind of share and create that transparency. Then the building capabilities. We see that there is a real skill gap in civil servants, for example, on systematic thinking, on approaching things like a system, on understanding the importance of the collaboration skills in this whole phase. At the same time, this is at the civil servant, we also believe that governments can play a real role in capability building for the social entrepreneurs themselves, because it's not so obvious, as probably many of you have experienced, to work with administrations. And just a few tips and tricks probably go a long way. Element 3 is actually very profound. It's develop the funding models. We see, and it was also already one of the outcomes of the Embracing Complexity report, that the funding really needs to be readjusted and reframed from the current very KPI-centric, project-focused funding on a specific theme to much more long-term, doing the right thing type of funding with a long-term perspective in mind. That's on the funding models. At the same time, very practically, we believe governments can help broaden the funding landscape which is available to social entrepreneurs, right? So where to go to. If you're in the private sector, there's all these venture funds and angel investors. If you're a social entrepreneur, where to go to. So that's on the left side. On the enabling side, promote collaboration. So if I'm a social entrepreneur and I want to reach out to a government, where to go to, right? Where is my one point of contact? How to do that? So, for instance, can governments not appoint like a liaison person or an point of contact? But also promote collaboration across sector, across social entrepreneurs, providing platforms, etc. And then the last one, which is probably also maybe a bit vaguer, is foster what we call institutionalization. I mean, ultimately, if you think systems change, many of the services that social entrepreneurs or NGOs fulfill, ultimately you could argue should be utilities provided by government, provided they're done in the right way. So ultimately, what are those elements where governments could take over the ownership on a social innovation and really scale and drive it? Now, there's a couple of examples as well, which we've laid out in the report. And of course, this is just a teaser to make you really keen to really start reading it when it's out. And at the same time also give a bit of the platform for the panelists to give their reflections on what's important to build ecosystems in which social entrepreneurs can thrive and help us close the SDGs. So moving to the next slide, or maybe actually take the slide from the screen, because we already introduced our panelists. Would be good to get some of the reflections, get the discussion going, and get some views from our panel on how do you see the social entrepreneurs can thrive, and especially the relevance of governments in this whole ecosystem. Any of you wants to kick it off, give a first reflection, first thought? Rodrigo?
Yeah, so hi everyone. So Gabi, do you like to speak first?
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead. Okay, that's so very nice informations here. I'm very committed with the field of technology for change, and having been part of the social entrepreneur field in the last 25 years old. We all know how is important government supporting and creating ecosystem, and perhaps this is what's happening in countries like United States or North America or Europe. I think in developing countries like Latin America or Central America, we have one big challenger in relationship with government based on the quality of these governments and the necessity and the wish to do important partnership with social entrepreneurs. We are, for example, in Brazil, with a situation, a completely different situation where the president don't like social entrepreneurs or NGOs or things like that. But it still is important builds ecosystem. So I think it's really valuable, the data that you are collecting and show for us, because Catalyst 2030 Brazil are clearly working in this process to launch our movement in Brazil and build a new ecosystem or an ecosystem for social entrepreneurs in Brazil. And this is completely important. We know how when we grow and go outside our country, most of the times we need to create a new entity in the United States or Europe because the law and the ecosystems in our countries is so weak. You know, I think create and promote collaboration is super important in this process. But I think in developing countries like Latin America, we needed to starting by the basics. So let creating an ecosystem that will support the new generation of social entrepreneurs be more effective and efficient and less gladiators like us did in the last decades, you know? So I think it is an important, valuable experience. And I would love also to thinking how do we can together share these results and impact.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Gabriele, you want to go next and share your perspectives?
Yes, I can. I'm totally agree with Rodrigo. I think we need to start to build the public policies to organize the ecosystem. Most of our countries don't have figures like hybrid industries, or if you are a social entrepreneur working with non-profit, your only legal figure is a foundation, and you can have access to investment. And we need to figure out how to create laws that allow us to create a strong ecosystem, but also to support the entrepreneurs at the beginning of the process, because most of the social entrepreneurs have to close their organizations in 2 or 3 or 5 years because they can manage the tax charge, the law that don't allow you to receive donations from other countries. And in countries like Venezuela, they prohibit to the organization receive money from international funders. That means that we need those social entrepreneurs to find a way to get resources inside their countries. And looking at the report, I was really engaged with the idea of build capacity, how the government can help social entrepreneurs to build capacity. And one of the things that I believe is important is first build the capacity in the government. Most of the governments in Latin America don't have a clue about what is a social entrepreneur and which is the difference between humanitarian aid or social development or even social investment. They talk about creative industry and orange economy, and they talk about impact investment, but they don't know how that works and which is the impact that can have in the community. And I really believe that we need to build the capacities inside the government first and working together with the social entrepreneur, and then start to build the capacities, of course, in the organization, especially because in countries like El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Colombia, and most of the countries in Latin America, the work in the more vulnerable and isolated communities is doing by tiny organizations that don't have any capacity. You know, they are working just for this idea of serve others, but they don't know how to do it, and they don't have financial support, they don't have communicational support, they don't have legal support, and they don't have the capacity to increase the impact of their organization because they are really tiny and very community focused. And I think we need to work in these two ways, working with the government and working with the local based organizations.
Thank you, Gabriela, and some very valuable thoughts in there. Maybe one question we've picked up quite a few times, and I'm ask you to think around it while we're listening to Alexandre for a second and come back to it, is yes, governments maybe need to learn and etc. At the same time, they also struggle to find out, okay, who are then these fantastic social entrepreneurs, and how do I spot the good ones maybe for the not so good ones? How to go about this, right? It's also a bit of a very practical question that they have. But anyhow, while you're pondering on that, Alexandre, keen to get your voice here as well. And so we talked a bit about governments. Maybe from your position, what do you think is blocking them, right? What are barriers for government to step up and do this more?
Thank you. I'm going to speak in Spanish with the translation because it will be easier for me to be clear in three concepts I want to share with you. Because I read, well, I'm speaking English now. I read the document, and I've been very surprised because the document use some kind of vocabulary that we don't use in Argentina. For example, we speak about popular economy or worker from popular economy instead of social entrepreneur, but it's the same logic. So I've read this document with all vocabulary, and I was very surprised to see the links between all politics and what it's proposed in the Catalyst document, because in Argentina we already have an experience of a link between state, government, and social organization. In fact, we have a social organization in the state. So we don't have this separation between state and society. We have society in the state. So it's a very important point because it resolves several items, or it changed some items that you propose in the document. For example, the link or the installation of new capabilities is principally a way to understand each other. State understanding organization, organization understanding state, and a mutation of political practices in both ways. But it's possible only if you share the space of power. So is what we do in the social economic secretary where I work. My chief, Emilio Persico, is a social direction, is a chief from a social organization. No? The second point is the articulation of knowledge. We have an epistemologic problem that is at the same time a politic problem. We have to build some of equal communication between several knowledge, state knowledge, academic knowledge, organizational knowledge, bureaucracy knowledge, and it's a process that we are living in. Some innovation that we create in this government, which is called RENATEP, National Registry of Workers from Popular Economy. The RENATEP allows us to identify the social entrepreneur, to make a commensuration of this word. We already have more than 1 million of registration, and to potentiate and valorate the work and the production of the workers. So it's a process in 3 times: identification, commensuration, and valorization of work and product. And how we do that? With a building of normativities and new public politics, and mediating between social fiscal relationships. So we are thinking about fiscal items, about financial items. So access to credit for work, for production and work. We compensate incomes from work with social incomes. We valorize knowledge, install knowledge with the process of certification of saberes preexistentes,
pre-existing knowledge.
Thank you. And we potentiate innovations from bottom. No? So this is what we do in the RENATEP, and it's a process that we are initiating. And for us, it's important to create a mediation between an asymmetric relation with fiscal, finance, labor, commercial, and knowledge relations, and to create new rights based on these relationships. So I think it's very interesting for us to see that we are saying the same thing with different words, and we are initiating in Argentina this process that you are describing in the document. Thank you, and sorry for my English. Finally, I speak in English.
Muchas gracias, Alexander. It was quite excellent, actually. I guarantee you, it's a lot better than my Espanol.
Thank you, Corin.
And yeah, he also gave Gabriela some time to think around my question. Any thoughts on that, Gabriela?
Yeah, well, I think it's a two-way road for me. Most of the government don't want to work with us. We are like, I'm sorry for my French, but the pain in the ass, because we are every time saying what is wrong and what we need to change. And that is not good for a government. Then most of the time, they don't want to work with us, and they don't want to give us voice in conversations or public conversations, at least. But I think that in the last 3 years, the challenge that we are facing as region push the governments to start find who are the social entrepreneurs who wants to collaborate and who wants to work with them. And that is where the other way of the road start for me, because the government don't want to work with us, but there's a lot of social entrepreneurs that don't want to work with government because there's a lot of corruption, you know, or at least the idea of corruption that we have in our region. And I think we are learning how to do it. And one of the things that I like most about the report is the idea of promote collaboration. We have several incredible examples in Latin America of collaborations between governments, social entrepreneurs, and private companies. Because if you want to create an ecosystem, you have to include everyone. You can work just with the government, leaving the social entrepreneurs out. And I think it's important to start to build that road and to start to create the trust. We need to trust in the government, learn how to do it, and the government needs to trust in our expertise in communities. That is the only way to do it. And I think promote these collaborations and this collaborative movement like Colombia Cares Colombia, or the initiative of social entrepreneurs in the north of Argentina in Jujuy that I'm part of, or organizations like Impact in Ecuador, create that, start to create that trust and that bond to collaborate with the governments. But yes, right now it's like a problematic marriage, I think.
Thank you, Gabriela. And I also just got word that our fourth panelist has difficulty entering the Zoom. So I'm afraid I'm going back to you, Rodrigo. So in the report we had these 5 items, right? And from your experience, I actually would like to ask you a double question. The first question is, if you think around these 5 or maybe a bit broader, what to you is kind of one of the highest priority items that people or maybe governments should really look at that will make a big change? And that's probably kind of a broad topic. And hence I'd like to make it a double question and also ask you, given you've been around the block, what is a very concrete thing that you saw somewhere where you feel, hey, if just a few more governments or a few more people did this and that, that already would make a little but profound impact already?
Yeah, thank you, Quinn. So I think for me and for social entrepreneurs that are in the coalition now in Brazil, building Catalyst 2030, building ecosystems for social entrepreneurs is something that is priority for us. So as I said before, be a social entrepreneur in developing countries is not like the countries that having already an ecosystem that's supporting social entrepreneurs. So I think so our friend here, Alexandri, so have probably one of the few positive relationships or in between government and social entrepreneurs in Latin America. And I'm just wondering and thinking, how do we can, for example, try to accelerate this in our region? You know, and I'm thinking if we have spaces like the Cumbre Ibero-Americana de Chefes e Chefas de Estado, which is a kind of meeting once per year that all of the presidents in Ibero-America have a meeting together. So years ago with Mireia Cisneros and other people, we implemented an agenda of social innovation in these governments through the Cumbre, you know. And what I'm thinking is how do we can, as a Catalyst 2030 global with McKinsey, implement an agenda in our region that we can accelerate the creation of ecosystems, and that include laws, that include new laws and ways to stimulate NGOs and social entrepreneurs or impact entrepreneurs flourish in the region, you know. For sure, the promotion of collaboration is something extremely important because we need to change the mindset of social entrepreneurs and change the ecosystems in the same way. So I'm just thinking about potentially social entrepreneurs could develop in collaboration through ourselves, you know, and how governments could try to support and accelerate that, you know. One of the conclusions that we are arriving in Brazil is, if I would say something very, very conservative, is we as a social entrepreneurs, we need to build Catalyst 2030s in our developing countries like a union, like a syndicate, a union for social and social impact entrepreneurs. because, and of course we are not doing this, because do a union is something that no one wants to do, but wants to create a think tank, do tank, a kind of very progressive union implementing this new agenda. But I think social entrepreneurs need to organize themselves in the country to create bridges, to create collaborations with governments in different stages, So I'm thinking, how do we can be more efficient, or in a region like Latin America, promoting this kind of ecosystems creation, And perhaps one thing that we would like to working also in Brazil is, there are very interesting public policies and ecosystems built for social entrepreneurs in the world, like Europe or United States. So do you think it's possible we creating a kind of template with the best practices in a kind of minimum or standard legislation or law or ecosystems for social entrepreneurs? And then with these toolkits in our hand, social entrepreneurs and governments together could learning and implementing this agenda. I'm trying to think more, because I think the necessity is so high, and the emergency in terms of the arid or situation for the ecosystems in our countries is so impacted, that if we can create two or three things that could accelerate and helping people organize themselves and changing and implementing a new ecosystem, it will be very useful, right?
I think you couldn't have summarized it better with the word beautiful. It certainly will be very beautiful. Thanks, Rodrigo. Before I hand over to our audience for their Q&As, maybe a last one to you, Alexandre. From your experience in Argentina, what surprised you the most in this journey of setting up the institutions that you described, and how the in our words, social entrepreneurs got to a new level? What were some of the maybe less obvious but exciting insights from that journey?
I think that what Rodrigo was saying is the key to explain how we could work with the state, and we created an ecosystem for social entrepreneurs. We created because we organized a union. We have been working on a union with the last 20 years. So it's a long process. It's fundamental because you have to have a recognition by the political class that this is a social actor. This is not a relevant and a central social actor, not a secondary actor. No, our point, Argentina since the 19th was a full employee society. So we started to have unemployment, and we started to have a lot of workers who create their own work and their own production. So with this heterogeneity of production and work is the reality of societies in Latin America. The problem is that, as Gabriela said before, the imagination is an imagination of homogeneity. And the imagination is that all the problems will be solved with creating new industries. And we know that is not true. So we have to recognize the heterogeneity, and we, state, government, have to know that they don't know society, because society is very heterogeneous.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you need a social actor to know how to produce, to know what we have to change in the local level, because state can know everything about the different level of his society and his territory. So it's not for us, it's not a secondary political. It's a central political if you want to change society. And one more point, all the works that all workers do are linked with caring medio ambiente, caring the environment, caring social community, caring person with dependence, caring alimentation. All this is the central meaning of our work and our production. So I think we have to work on this idea of an heterogeneity that you don't know, that you can't know alone. To know society, you have to know with others, and social entrepreneurs have this knowledge. So it's a necessity. It's not a secondary politic.
Yeah, am I right to conclude it's almost your only way to assure that you capture that heterogeneity and that you have all the voices in the room, right? And that's the best, and the social entrepreneurs give you the best angle to actually get that.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. Um, let me also open up for our small yet exclusive audience to ask and a few of their questions about the report, about the topic in general. It's only a few of us, but certainly I want to give the opportunity for folks to ask their questions. If you're uncomfortable speaking up in whatever language, you can also throw them over the chat.
I was originally meant to translate, but I would like to take advantage of the opportunity to ask. I'm pretty young and I'm studying these aspects, so I'm very lucky to be here right now. Thank you for all the panelists. And I wanted to ask about, I'll turn on my camera for my question, if you don't mind. I wanted to ask if sometimes inadvertently there are like conflict between registered workers and the social, or like, and the social economy workers. Not that there is conflict, but there is like a perceived thing that there, and that's what I heard was the thing about creating a union. And you know, like unions that exist currently for traditional work, teachers, production unions, see with a little bit of how do you say, like they do not trust these new forms of organizations because they might, or they feel they might undermine their own forms of organizations. How can governments maybe try to mitigate this, to integrate it all? So, you know, we are all workers and we are in a heterogenic economy, for anyone in the panel.
Thank you. That's a great question, and please feel free to speak up more and don't just only translate. I guess there's a few of us eager to answer. Rodrigo, you already unmuted yourself.
Yeah, no,
I guess you want to go ahead.
What I would like to share is we know how unions also share the game of corruption with governments, etc. So for that reason, we are not supporting the idea to create the traditional unions. But how do we can create something very innovative, like a think tank, do tank, that stimulate collaboration among social entrepreneurs, that stimulate the creation of funds to invest in collaborative impact, and that stimulate the creation of a new ecosystems in our countries. So it's something more disruptive and different, you know, that could occupy the space of the collective, because you know all of the industries in the world, perhaps, maybe I can not be so generic, having their union or their strategy or the way to creating a collective representation and a collective voice, you know, and this is what we are doing. And I think the way that Catalyst 2030 Global are going to adapt in the countries in the developing world will be occupying this kind of space to do something like that, you know.
Thanks, Rodrigo. Any of the other panelists wants to react maybe on this perceived tension between social entrepreneurs and quote unquote normal workers? And if it's perceived, what to do about it? Alexandre?
Yes, I will say it in Spanish. For me, it will be
It's no
easy.
problem. We have a translator with us.
So you have to translate the answer for your question. In Argentina, we say that the traditional union are the columna vertebral, the spine of the workers. We say that popular economy is la médula. There's a no, I don't know how we say in English what we have inside the bone.
Like yeah, like the marrow, like the center of something, you know. Yeah, the marrow, the most important, the core.
Exactly. So here is more flexible. It is the space where there is the energy, the innovation, the circulation of blood, of information is less rigid. But they have to coexist, and we have to create a new form of union, a collective union that articulate with other forms of organization existing, but with a democratic form of organization and with values that are in the heart of what we do and what we think. It's a different kind of union. It's a new kind of union. We have been working on this for 20 years. And only now we are starting to organize this kind of union. But it's a long path, but we have to start someday.
Thank you, and I think the analogy is fantastic. Any other question for the panel?
I believe Juan Martinez has logged on.
Oh, but you're still on mute, Juan Martinez. No, we can't hear you. You're on mute. There's somewhere probably in the bottom left corner, a button with mute or unmute. Anyhow, now you're unmuted.
I am on mute, and I'm so sorry for not being connected since 1 hour ago.
Yeah, no worries. We were informed you had technical difficulty.
My abilities, but now I am here. But maybe the conversation was already done, so I know what to do.
Well, you're right in time, because we had a bit of a roundabout, and we're just opening up the Q&A for the participants to really engage a bit in a dialogue around the importance of social entrepreneurs and the key role that governments can and should play, and what they concretely can do, which obviously is also a bit the topic of our report. So maybe give you a bit of the opportunity to give your broader perspective, and then we will ask one more question for the audience, and then we'll close off with a bit the process after this.
What I could say is that from the government of Mexico, we do believe in that we must change structurally and deeply the system that we have for social and economic relations. So what we do is to enhance what we consider the best social innovation produced in Europe in the late 19th century, that it was the cooperativism. And wait a second.
The joys from working from home.
Now I found what happened. I'm so sorry. And so we enhance the cooperativism as the social enterprise that we understand functions better in the market, in a society as we have, and that enhance also the kind of social interrelations, the links with the people. So that's basically the institute in which I work, and I have the responsibility. So we think about the social entrepreneurs in terms of how we can produce services and merchandisings that are needed by the people in a different way of administration, and that administration is the ownership, the wide open ownership of cooperativism. I read the report that the papers that you sent me, and I think that we have the coincidence that we must enhance capabilities into the field, and also to enhance the possibilities to make networks. We do that. We have now a network of 70 universities in the whole country. That's called NODES, and maybe Mariana could send you the information about that. NODES is like that, like nodo, that is the Spanish word to say that point, or that point where many things collide. And this is the NODES for social economy. So the basic structure is to have a university, a member of the sector, the social sector, that can be a cooperative or a ejido, that is the ownership of the land in communities, and also a local government, as municipalities or states government. We are federal government. So we have now the network of 70. The work of the INAES is to provide the wide formation about social economy and cooperativism. And with all those ecosystems, we enhance creativity, innovation, and the social actors that we need to put in place with these kind of formulas. And then it is up to them. I mean, we put that framework, and then they can work trying to make innovations with a very contextual and localized frameworks of participation. We have 70 now, and we do believe that in 4 years we're going to have 300. So the structure of the government is not going to be only the government, but the people, the academia with the universities, and also the productive sector of the social sector of the economy. Basically is that. And I think that we could show you many results. Right now, we have like 20 that they have very nice projects in Mexico, and but within a year, we're gonna have many other projects. I would like to underline that, of course, the SDGs are our framework also of work, and the projects that we have, basically in the Yucatan Peninsula, when we have the new train wide project, that's where we have a wide concentration of nodes, and so we're gonna have in the next year many exercises and social innovations from social actors within the territory to do much more than just an infrastructure project that is the train. And the richness of that train is what is going to happen within the peninsula. And maybe some of you know that only the Amazonas zone in Peru, Colombia, Brazil is as rich. Well, Yucatan is the second area in the continent with the richness of biodiversity, and I think that that's very important to have social innovation in that kind of fields to protect and promote sustainability with that kind of economic projects with society. Well, I don't know if this is what you wanted to hear. Maybe I can stop there, and maybe if you have some questions, I could tell you more. But basically, that's what we're doing here in Mexico. And I'm so sorry to be so. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Juan Martin, and it was great to hear that story, and congratulations with that achievement already have a 70, and even more encouraged by the ambition to go to 300. And from the tone of your voice, I really sense an eagerness to go way beyond that, and I guess that's fantastic. Recognizing we're almost at the top of the hour and only a few minutes left, unless there's any burning topics, I would like to inform you guys that those who registered will receive a sneak preview of the report. Some of you already got it in the next week. But we're of course all looking forward to the big launch, which will be in January, where we'll hopefully also generate a lot of media attention so people can use it within their setting and their context. And I guess let me close off with the request to, once it's out there, read the report, but especially encourage others to read it, and even more important, make the change. We are a true believer that a few people and a few talents can make a meaningful difference in the world, and I believe I'm looking at a few of them right here. So please keep the trust, keep the good work, and make the world a better place. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, dear panelists. It was great meeting you all, and hope to see you soon.